Driving nights for a rideshare app can feel like drifting through an alternate version of your own city. The streets you know are still there, but empty, washed in sodium orange streetlight, lined with closed shops and locked houses. Most rides blur together, college kids too drunk to speak clearly, workers heading home after graveyard shifts, couples whispering in the back. But every driver has that one ride that never leaves them. Mine came from a pickup request at 2:07 a.m. The pin dropped at an abandoned gas station. The place had been shut down for years. The sign broken, pumps gone, weeds splitting the pavement. My first instinct was to cancel, but the app insisted. Passenger waiting. As I idled in the lot, headlights sweeping across cracked pavement, I thought maybe it was just a prank. Then from the shadows near the boarded-up store, a man stepped forward. He didn't wave, didn't check his phone, didn't act like he'd been waiting. He just approached, pulled open the rear door, and slid into the back seat. His movements were smooth but oddly stiff, like his joints weren't working right. "Where to?" I asked, forcing my voice steady. He gave me an address across town, spoken flatly, no hesitation, like a rehearsed line. I repeated it back, but he didn't nod or speak. He just stared out the window. As I drove, unease gnawed at me. His clothing was out of place. Baggy jeans, a bulky jacket, a baseball cap pulled low. Everything about him screamed decades out of date. And in the mirror, his skin looked wrong. Pale, waxy, almost gray in the passing light. The silence inside the car was oppressive. No rustle of fabric, no shift in posture, not even the subtle rhythm of breathing. Just silence, and the faint hiss of static in the headset resting on my passenger seat. Halfway there, my GPS froze. The screen glitched, rerouted us in circles before flicking back to the same destination. I glanced at the mirror for reassurance. The backseat was empty. I nearly slammed the brakes. My eyes darted from the road to the seat. Nothing. Then in the mirror again, he was there. Exactly where he'd been, only now leaning slightly forward, a faint smile twisting his lips. My pulse spiked. My hands clenched the wheel. We reached the address, a small house with no lights, curtains drawn. The yard looked neglected, weeds growing tall. I pulled up to the curb and said, "We're here." For a long, unbearable moment, he didn't move. Then slowly he leaned toward the divider. His face came close enough to fog the glass between us. His whisper crawled into my ear. "You forgot to ask how I'd like to pay." And in the space of a blink, the backseat was empty again. No door opening, no sound, just gone. I scrambled out of the car, scanning the street, the sidewalk, the yard. Nothing. The silence pressed down around me. Finally, I opened the back door myself, desperate to prove he'd been real. On the seat lay a crumpled $5 bill. The paper was brittle, discolored, edges worn thin like it had been sitting in someone's pocket for decades. A dark smear, too dark to be grease, streaked across it. Back at home, I checked my ride history. The trip wasn't there. No record of the pickup, no destination, no fare. Yet on my dashboard, I still get phantom pings at 2 a.m. Always from that same abandoned gas station. Always unaccepted. Always lingering as if waiting for me to take the ride again. I never do. I'd been using rideshare apps for years, usually to get home safely after late shifts. Most rides were uneventful. Quiet drivers, quick trips. But one night, I learned how wrong it can go when you trust the wrong person behind the wheel. It was just after midnight, and I ordered a ride from downtown to my apartment about 20 minutes away. A black sedan pulled up, the driver matching the app's photo. mid-40s, clean cut, wearing a faded baseball cap. I got in, greeted him, and he gave me a polite nod. At first, nothing felt unusual. We drove the main road for a few minutes, then he turned down a side street. My phone buzzed. It was the app rerouting, no big deal. But then he turned again. And again. Soon, we weren't on any familiar road. The streetlights grew scarce. Trees crowded the edges of the pavement. The farther we went, the darker it got. "Hey," I said, trying to keep my voice steady, "I think you missed the highway." He didn't answer. His eyes stayed locked on the road, knuckles tight around the wheel. I checked my phone. The map showed us drifting further from my apartment, down roads with names I didn't recognize. I tried the share trip feature to text my location, but the app froze, buffering endlessly. I glanced up at the rear-view mirror. That's when I realized he was watching me through it. His eyes unblinking, fixed on mine, not just driving, but studying me. The silence inside the car was unbearable. Finally, I said, louder this time, "Where are we going?" That's when he spoke. His voice was calm, too calm. "Don't worry, we'll get there." My heart hammered. I scanned the car for something. Anything. The door locks were child-locked. My hand tightened around my phone like it was the only weapon I had. Then headlights appeared behind us. Another car. Relief surged through me. I waved through the back window, hoping they'd notice. The driver suddenly jerked the wheel, turning sharply down a gravel road into what looked like woods. The car behind us kept going, disappearing. The crunch of gravel under the tires filled the silence. My stomach twisted as I realized he was taking me somewhere no one could see us. I forced my voice to sound firm. "Stop the car right now." This time he didn't answer, just gripped the wheel harder, his jaw clenched. I panicked, fumbling for the door handle, yanking at it even though I knew it wouldn't open. My mind raced. Then, as if by luck, my phone signal returned. I hit the emergency button in the app, loud enough for him to hear the automated voice say, "Calling emergency services." He slammed the brakes. The car skidded to a stop. For a moment, neither of us moved. Then slowly, he turned his head toward me. His eyes were empty, his smile thin and unnatural. Without a word, he shifted into reverse, spun the car, and drove back toward the main road at a steady pace, like nothing had happened. Minutes later, he dropped me off a block from my apartment. When I opened the door to get out, he finally spoke again, almost whispering, "Not tonight." And then he was gone. The ride didn't appear in my trip history. No record of the detour, no sign I'd ever been in that car. But every time I hear gravel crunch under tires now, I remember that smile and how close I came to never making it home. I'd been relying on rideshare apps for years. They felt safe. Every ride tracked, every driver reviewed, every trip recorded on your phone. But one night, I realized that safety is an illusion. Sometimes the real danger isn't who's behind the wheel. It's what's already in your pocket. It was raining hard that night, the kind of rain that makes the city feel deserted, like the streets belong only to headlights and reflections. I stayed late at work, and around midnight, I pulled out my phone to order a ride home. The app connected instantly, almost too fast. A driver was supposedly just 2 minutes away. That was odd. At that time of night, cars were usually scattered across town. Still, I shrugged and waited under the awning until a car rolled up. But something wasn't right. The app said silver Prius. What pulled up was a black sedan, windows tinted so dark I couldn't see inside. My phone buzzed anyway. "Your driver has arrived." I leaned toward the passenger side and asked, "This ride for my name?" The driver didn't hesitate. He nodded before I even finished. He was pale, thin, with sharp cheekbones and a cap pulled low. His eyes flicked toward me but didn't linger. Against my better judgment, I climbed in. At first, the ride was silent except for the rain drumming on the roof. But then he spoke, without me saying a word. "Long day at the office. You always stay late on Thursdays." My stomach dropped. I hadn't told him where I worked. I hadn't said anything about Thursdays. "How do you know that?" I asked, my voice unsteady. He tapped the phone on his dashboard. "The app tells me everything I need to know." The way he said it wasn't casual. It was like he was repeating a script. We drove in silence for a few minutes, but then he started again. His voice was calm, measured, but each word felt heavier. "Your last driver gave you 5 stars. You never tip unless it's cash. You always sit behind the passenger seat, never directly behind the driver. You like control. You think it makes you safer." I froze. Those details. He was right. I did all those things. But there was no way the app should have recorded them. No way he could know. The rain hammered harder against the windows. My phone screen glowed in my hand, but the map had stopped moving. The app was frozen, the little arrow spinning in place. I couldn't end the ride, couldn't share my location. It was like the phone wasn't mine anymore. The driver glanced into the rearview mirror, locking eyes with me. His lips curled into a small, unsettling smile. "And tonight," he said softly, "you'll take your longest ride yet." My chest tightened. I tried to sound calm. "Look, I think you've got the wrong..." But my phone buzzed violently. A new screen appeared, not the app. Just a blank white background with black text. "Do not speak, get ready to jump." I stared at it, frozen. Another message appeared immediately. "Now." The car slowed for a red light. Without thinking, I yanked the door handle and threw myself into the rain-soaked street. I hit the pavement hard, rolling onto the sidewalk. Pain shot through my side, but I scrambled to my feet. The driver slammed the brakes, shouting something I couldn't make out over the storm. His headlights burned against me for one long second, then he sped off into the night. By the time I caught my breath, the app was gone. Not closed, uninstalled. No trace it had ever been on my phone. When I called the company later, they swore there was no ride logged under my account. No driver matched the description I gave. No car in the system had been near my location that night. But sometimes, walking home late in the rain, I still see it. A faint flicker across my lock screen, there and gone before I can react. Always the same words. "Your driver has arrived." If you made it this far, thank you for spending your night with us. If these stories gave you chills, there's plenty more waiting. Don't forget to subscribe to Night Fear Stories for new terrifying tales every single night. Sleep well, if you can.